YouTube. And yeah, we've seen the things. I think the goal is to have an efficient meeting. But let's lay plans of mice and men, so we'll see how it goes. YouTube. Okay. Start our webinar.
I got caught in the rain today.
What was that?
I got caught in the rain today. I think I caught a cold.
Oh boy. Well, hopefully it's a cold, but yeah, no, I got caught twice in the rain. So, okay, so let's see how we go. Okay, I see everyone. We'll start promoting everyone over. So we see you. Are you promoting people coming in? It's a race. Max, I'll make you a co-host. Or are you already host?
I think I am. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we're going to jump in from a timing perspective. I don't necessarily need a quorum to start. Max, if you keep an eye on the attendee list, some of the members come in through there. So you promote them. I'd like to start the meeting, I should say. Feel like we just did this the other day. Good to see everyone. My gosh, is this deja vu or are we still on? Well, enough of my jokes. My feeling is that the hopes is to have just a very efficient steering committee meeting. In all seriousness, we did just meet. So Max and I are both going to pass on our updates. And we're going to jump right into the co-chair meetings, and then we'll have new and old business, and we'll see how that goes. But the idea is I think if we have an efficient meeting, that would be best for all. So I know that I'm going to jump around a bit. I know we got a couple notes for people that may need to leave early. So one of them is, Linda, if you want, can start with yourself. So if BCI wants to give an update, we can start with you.
Well, we've got a lot to look forward to next week. And Christian, just correct me, but we have 4 very interesting and very quick applications. One's actually a change of corporate name. But the most important thing and the most extraordinary thing, which Max arranged for us, is that we are going to be hearing from the Office of Cannabis Management. They'll have I think a 25-minute presentation followed by Q&A. Am I correct?
I believe so.
And I'm so excited about that. I can't tell you, it's like being back in college. So, anyway, so that's the big.
Literally.
Are they providing samples or?
It's going to be the most popular meeting of the month. It's going to be. I think we're going to push that to the in-person part of the month if we want to.
I love it. So. Anyway, it's virtual, but we'll find out what the criteria are. And Doug is an expert in this, so this is not that way because of his personal. I can't even go there. Anyway,
yeah, Max, we had a small conversation with this representative from Office of Cannabis Management, and just to understand, they're going to do a 25-minute or so, right, Max? PowerPoint presentation followed by Q&A. And there were some questions that she did not have the answers to yet, but the obvious questions are what is going to be our involvement as a community board in terms of approving and all that stuff. So there's a public health issue part of this, so it should be very interesting, and we'll all be there to listen, learn, and ask questions.
That's fun.
Great. Well, I did want to also acknowledge Doug. Doug has been sort of the informal ambassador on this. It came up a couple of community members started about 6 months ago, and I did ask Doug to sort of, I'm going to say informally kind of take the lead. So I know that he's gone on a handful of sort of informative meetings, particularly even with the governor. I'm not even making any jokes. I could continue on with those, but no, in all seriousness, I want to thank him. He has really taken sort of a lead, and there was like a series of meetings, and Doug has gone for the community board 7. So there's no such, we don't have a formal task force, but Doug is sort of our resident expert. And if people do have issues or concerns, I don't know if Doug wants me to say this, but I think he would certainly have a conversation, but he has sort of informally taken the lead on this, and I want to thank him for that. So thank you, Doug.
And if anybody's interested in counterculture from 50 years ago, I'm available to discuss it too.
Will there be pictures?
Yes, unfortunately, a lot.
I know there'll be a concert, so I appreciate that. So, okay. Anything else we want to add, or that's what? Great.
Come to BCI. It's going to be riotously fun and informative.
Okay, great. Okay, and so why don't we have Courtney and Blanche? I know, Courtney, you said you had some challenges too, so why don't we have you guys go next?
Yeah, thanks. I think Blanche is having some audio issues, so I'm going to speak for YL. So we are still working on what we are going to be doing in our meeting. We have a different date this month. We're going the last Thursday of the month instead of the third Thursday, scheduling issues. So we have a little bit more time. Likely it'll be something to do with youth services. We'd already reached out to DYCD. And as you saw last night on Full Board, there's another option that we're going to do some outreach for, about talking to that gentleman who joined us yesterday about potentially supporting and the need for youth programming for Douglas houses. So all of that is probably, if I were a betting woman, where we're going to end up for this month. We also, Steve, just have reached out to Superintendent Laughlin, because I'd love to have her on. I asked her for either this month or May, just to do an update on where we are, especially given some of the changes that are coming down the pike in terms of budget and G&T and all kinds of things. So we do have that also on the agenda, potentially, hopefully, for one of the next few months. So fingers crossed. One other thing I just wanted to say is to voice support for what I think you were trying to do last night about time limiting some people. I do think it is important for us to talk about as a board how long the meetings go, how frequently some people speak, not because it's not important and not because they don't have valuable things to say, but I do think, similar to how the argument we heard about in-person being a barrier for some people to attend and engage and potentially apply to sit on this board, I do also think the length of which our meetings go and the frequency which they devolve into back and forth and people speaking for 10 minutes at a time. I know so many people who I've talked to who join a meeting, see that happen and say, no, thank you. No, thank you to attending. No, thank you to applying. And so I just really think it's important for us as a board to address this seriously, because I think it's a barrier for many people when they come and see our meetings go down that rabbit hole. And I also had a question as to whether or not we actually have some rules on the books about the frequency with which people can speak on a topic. And if we don't, perhaps we should. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Courtney. Let's just stick first to the meeting. Thank you for the meeting. Max, we'll figure out if you have a reso that could happen. I appreciate your support and your thoughts, and I do think it's important that we always just continue to sort of look. Let's assume everyone's well intended, but I think sometimes we have to look how we work, and I think Zoom makes things a little bit different. I always felt like in person, body language, things like that seem to kind of work a little bit easier. So let's see how the Zoom part goes about it, but we can continue those conversations. There are some things on the book, so I'll let Susan speak to that. And I think there may be some things that we can add. I know that their bylaws committee put out it was more of a best practices on Zoom. So assuming that perhaps when we go back to in-person, things will sort of change or get back to maybe a little bit more, but I appreciate the notes. I also want to thank everyone. I did receive quite a few emails and shines of support. I did receive quite a few community members that actually reached out. So I want to thank everyone who did reach out and from a support perspective. Thanks. Okay, let's continue on. Let's go. Well, I think we're past any timing issues. So maybe it's timing wise that bylaws task force would be good to go now.
Thanks so much. I just want to jump on the Courtney bandwagon and agree with what she said. And we do actually currently have something in the bylaws that says that any board member should speak only no more than twice on any given topic. But certainly our task force is taking a look at this very carefully, because we do want the meetings to be efficient. Speaking of bylaws task force, we're meeting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on a Zoom channel near you. All are welcome. We're working feverishly to get to a point where we can present the bylaws in a resolution format hopefully at the May meeting. So please join us tomorrow morning. It'll be 10 to 11:30. Thanks so much.
And I would add, so just so everyone knows, and is, Susan, your intent is to sort of wrap this up and sort of present and then vote on the new bylaws in the next, month or so. So if this is something that you want to add, please do. If bylaws is important to you, you should show up, but they are the end of a process. And I know that Susan has sent, well, I should say her and the task force has sent out multiple emails asking for input. So I just want to make sure that when we sort of get down to it, people realize that there has been a lot of inflection points to communicate, and tomorrow 10 a.m. is one. And whether you want to talk about the topic that was just talked about or anything, their intention is to wrap this up and bring it in front. So, if this is something that bylaws and is important, then I encourage you to show up. I encourage you to reach out to Susan and the task force, but I think they're looking to wrap up their work, and then eventually we will vote on it. So, these are the windows, just so everyone understands.
Thank you.
Okay, let's continue on, and we'll call on transportations, which I would speak.
I don't think Andrew's here. We had a relatively uneventful meeting. Andrew gave a talk about the fare initiatives that the MTA is implementing with the new fare system, and initiatives to keep the subway safer. But we didn't have any resolutions come out of the meeting, and we just have a routine resolution for the next meeting, which regards basically a renewal application for a taxi and limousine service. So unusually, we don't have much going on.
Well, things could change. And could you just clarify something for me, Howard? So when is your new meet? When is your next? Did you have a meeting this month already, or are we talking about the next one?
We're talking about the next meeting. The next meeting, the approval of the license for the taxi and limousine company is on the agenda. And then it's just anything that comes up. But that's the only thing we actually have on our agenda.
Got it, the 12th. So got it.
That's correct. Yeah. It's a week from Tuesday.
I think there's one other item that was going to be put on the agenda, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry.
Sure.
About the transportation, the agenda. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it was just the issue of the discounted fines for the large companies. I thought that was mentioned, that was going to be that was in our minutes in our last meeting. We were going to discuss that, where the large companies have now been given more discounts for illegal parking. Do you remember that, Howard?
Yeah, we definitely discussed that, and we don't have a presenter on that, and I don't think anything came out of that discussion.
Okay.
So we didn't put it on the agenda for next week's meeting because we merely had a discussion of it. We did think it was inequitable that the larger companies get bigger discounts than the smaller companies, but there was no resolution or no decision to pursue a resolution on that. Plus, we don't have any speaker on that. If you, Doug, have someone who can give us more information and lead us in a direction that would result in a resolution, that would be useful. But we don't have anything. We discussed it, and we basically said a system like that would be unfair, but we don't have any definitive information on it.
Okay, I understand. I'll see what I can do. But I at our meeting, we mentioned that it would be on the agenda for this month. It was reflected in the minutes. But no problem. I don't think it's an emergency. It's something that we can dig deeper into and perhaps punt for.
Yeah, I have no further information. Again, it sounds to me that the bigger the company, the bigger the discount seems unfair. But I at this point, don't have any further information on that. And I think if we can find someone who can give us more information on that, that would be great.
Okay, great. I'll get the facts on it, because just for the record, it's not the same discounts. It's now that there's a new wave of discounts.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And that's what we want to look into. All right. Thanks a lot.
Yep. That's it.
Thank you. And Doug, if you want to chat with Max and brainstorm, and then nothing precludes you during old business to bring it up as a topic if it's something that you want to talk about at the meeting. Okay,
thanks.
Let's talk to our strategy and budget chair. I think I threw you off, Roberta, because I go at the end to you all the time. I came up in the beginning for you.
I appreciate it, but unfortunately, We're not meeting until next week, so we have nothing new from last stirring to this stirring to report, but we appreciate being called on early.
Okay, well, that's good enough for me. I'll note it. Okay, let's continue on. And let's talk.
Actually, Steve, hold on one sec. Paul, I sent you the notifications as Max to promote yourself to a panelist. You just have to click the prompt. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. So in no due order, let's go with Parks and Environment.
Hi, everyone. Our next meeting will be on Monday, the 18th. And we have sort of a packed agenda this time. It's a busy meeting, but no resolutions are being requested as of right now. The first item is by the Central Park Conservancy. They will come and present an update on the Harlem Mere project. The second item is about Anibal Avila's playground. There was some confusion because the presentation at the CB7 meeting is about a temporary art installation that is coming in basically this spring. But at the same time, I believe the borough president's office, or actually, sorry, not the borough president, but Steve Simon's office, they also sent out another notice saying that there was a meeting about Anibal Avila's playground, and that concerns the overall renovation of the playground, and it is not hosted by CB7. So I just wanted to clarify that. The item about the playground at the CB7 meeting on the 18th is very limited in scope, and it only addresses the temporary art installation that's coming up. The third item on the agenda is something about, it's a visit from Leonardo Bolaro, who is the budget officer at Gail Brewer's office. He will be coming and talking about all priorities related to parks and environment at the council member's office. And the final presentation will be by Riverside Park Conservancy. And they will be presenting briefly about their upcoming summer 2022 programming. And that's it.
Thank you. So two things to mention. One is I do think there was making sure that you guys got connected with Max. Max, didn't I see something about that they wanted to do some type of update on the boat basin down the line? Wanted to make sure that Barbara and Natasha.
Yes, I responded to him. They're not ready yet. They got called back, and there are some other parameters that they have to meet. And when they are ready, they will definitely come to us, and they're keeping us in the loop, and we appreciated that.
Great.
But they're not ready, and they're not presenting now. And when they do, we'll certainly let everyone know, because it's a big deal.
Exactly. I want to make sure that we give good notice on that. So, okay. And then Max, I think you were able to attend the event for the parks. Unfortunately, the three of us, meaning the two co-chairs and myself.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to give a 30-second? I think you met was it the Manhattan chair, or maybe you want to just share 2 seconds with that?
Yeah, I went. It was, and not to worry, everyone, it was not very well attended. But I went.
By you. By you.
Yeah. And no, it was just extremely brief. I spent the majority of the time chatting with Gail and my former district manager at CB8, but CB7 was represented and it went well.
Who was it with again, though? Just clarifying for everyone.
Oh, the new, I forget the title, but the new Parks
Commissioner.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sorry it wasn't more eventful, but I think last minute I couldn't make it, and we got it a little bit late for some reason. But either way, we attended it, so glad to hear that. Okay, we'll continue on. Let's go with land use. Richard.
Hi. Our meeting, if we have one, will be on the 20th. We're in a kind of a slow period for the committee. There are a few items that are sort of pending, and I'm probably going to poll members of the committee to see whether they want to meet on them. One is the ongoing issue of open restaurants and where that stands procedurally and also substantively. Another is our ongoing complaint about scaffolds staying up on buildings long enough to become landmarks themselves. And the third is and I'm not sure whether we're the appropriate committee or preservation is, but we note Ethel called my attention to the fact that, and also Paige, the church, the Presbyterian Church, which owns the building, landmark building on 86th in Amsterdam, has signaled its intention to apply to unlandmark the building because it can't afford the necessary repair. So we may want to get an update on that. We have no resolutions to present, but I will notify people in the next few days whether we're going to meet. My inclination is to meet because I don't want to miss too many months in a row. I just wanted to say on the issue of the length of meetings, Steve, I'd like you to consider whether it's necessary to have every precinct commander attend and present at every meeting, or whether it may make more sense to rotate. There's not a lot new every month that these folks have to report, and it may be that one live presenter and the other two, if they have anything, just by a written presentation. And it's a long part of our meeting, and I think it can be cut down substantially without any bad effect.
Okay. Well, thank you, Richard. A couple different topics. Number one is to the latter. We can certainly have a conversation. The fact of the matter is that there may be a situation 50-50 at best that we are going to be in person. So the nature of how that works out, we're going to have to rethink. So this public session has sort of been more of a Zoom thing.
Right.
There's a couple of hands raised, and I'm gonna let people hand if that's the topic. Listen, I would also come back and say that I respect your thoughts. I will say from a community perspective, there's a lot of positive feedback on that section. So I know that maybe as board members, we may feel a certain way, but I would absolutely tell you that from a community input, that receives a tremendous amount of positive stuff, and they almost want more. So again, my feeling is let's see how we develop into next month. If we're going to do a Zoom meeting for next month and we want to have a little bit of a conversation, I'm all for being the orderly part of it, but it may become a moot issue anyway. But I certainly acknowledge your point. And I think we spoke about this another time once offhand as well.
Mm-hmm.
I do see the hands up. I do want to also acknowledge that I've had a little bit of a conversation with Richard, and I have a little bit of a conversation with housing. They're the only two. I'm a big person in terms of co-chairs. One of the things we thought was, let's see, we're going to wait, not sure, just to see new members. So it's we may look at the whole construct of those committees as new members come in and how that could affect co-chairs. So just putting a pin maybe for 30 days. I'm also acknowledging I was going to call housing, but I don't think I see Louisa here. So I'm just going to X that off. But I see some hands that want to discuss or give some feedback on that. But those are the two things as well. But thank you, Richard, for your thoughts, and we could bring it up. But it may become a moot issue. I'll start with Courtney first, and there's a couple other hands as well.
Thanks, and I won't speak again lest I violate my newly learned about 2 times.
No, it's on the same topic.
I know, so this is it. This is all I got. I would just say 2 things, which are the other opportunities for the public to interact and ask questions and hear from the commanders. Those are the precinct community council meetings and the build-a-blocks, and neither of those, I believe, are regularly broadcast on Zoom. And so for those of us who can't always get out, this is the opportunity in some ways for people to interact. And so I think it's really important. And I would just second Steve's comment that the feedback I get from the circles that I run in is that that is a highlight and perhaps the most important part in some meetings of our entire full board. So
Thank you.
that's all I have to
Courtney.
say on that.
Christian?
I was going to say, I agree with Stephen that it is an important part for the community. And I don't think that we can do without. Also, as we go back to in person, we still haven't decided whether we will do hybrid meetings or not. So some of this might still be a Zoom component. And that's something we're going to have to think about.
I think there's going to be a work in progress there. So I agree with you. Roberta?
I think it's very important that we have the session on safety. I just think it can be a little more efficient. Maybe the idea of having a different, the 201 month, the 24 the next month, and the, unless there's something happening, and the Central Park a second time. I just wanted to add on to what Courtney said earlier about our meetings being more efficient. Our present bylaws do restrict people talking, and they do permit the chair to limit the amount of time people speak. And I know there's a countdown clock that we could put on Zoom. So maybe we want to think about adding the countdown so that, when you're speaking, you have an idea of how many seconds you've spoken. Some people have no concept of how long they're talking.
Yeah, there is some technology, and I think every time we visited, we thought we'd be like going live the next month. So, but it's certainly, again, something long-term. And I would think certainly as we contemplate hybrid meetings, and it looks, that there'll be some level of them, although I'm only just giving my thoughts, we could put a countdown clock. So Max, maybe that's something that we should look at.
I'll say, that's exactly what we did at CB8 across town. Everyone got 2 minutes and it was counting down, and everyone could see it, and it would beep when it was done.
Great. Barbara. You got to unmute yourself, Barbara.
Unmute.
Sorry about that.
Still muted.
Take your time. I think you're good, Barbara.
Okay, how about that?
Sounds great.
Oh, okay. So I was going to bring this up in new business, but since we're talking about it now, I completely agree with Courtney. Her discussion about people speaking for a very long time was my main issue. I am on the in-person task force. I've been to every meeting. I wanted to say something last night, but in deference of time, I decided not to, because so many people were going on at such length, and it's just not fair to others. There's just no respect. That some people just go on and on and on. The other thing.
Barbara, you muted yourself by accident, I think, because we could hear you.
I'm so sorry. I'm not even near my mute button. It's over here, and my hands are down here, but anyway, I'm so sorry.
Computer, so don't worry.
It's my computer. I guess it doesn't want me to speak, but I didn't understand why some people read their resolutions out loud and for such a long time, and they go on and on and on. And we're required as community board members to read the resolutions in advance. I print mine out, I read them all before every single meeting, and I feel like I'm prepared, but I have never read a resolution out loud. I think that they should all be treated equally, and if one person could do it, others can do it, but I don't think anybody should really do it. And I think that there are other ways to cut down time in our meeting, and I also would appreciate having the police come there. I think it's a valuable resource to a lot of people in the community. Thank you.
Okay. Well, and maybe I know that you're on the bylaws task force. Maybe there are some best practices for how to present a reso as well that you could discuss in that section as well.
Yeah.
Howard?
Thanks.
Oh, it's just, I agree completely with Barbara. I think there should be a rule against reading resolutions, especially lengthy resolutions. And I think people should be mindful of non-controversial agenda items. There are some agenda items that are clearly going to pass. They're not very consequential. They're not very controversial. And I don't know how you reduce the amount of time we spend on them, But I guess that's your job, Stephen, lucky you, to try to rein that in, because there are just some things that are just, everyone is okay with it. It doesn't need 5, 10, 20, 15 minutes of conversation.
Well, agreed. I mean, let's continue on, and we can pick this up in new or old business. I mean, look, the one thing I'd say, the reading of the resolutions, I think, can be, it can be challenging if they're very long. I think at the same time, some of this is really high quality stuff and people work on, and they want, and maybe it is for the best to have some of it put in. So I'm sure there's a balance. I understand that the side. And again, maybe that's a conversation for us to have. I think there's a balance of sometimes you're reading stuff because you want to make a statement as a community board, and maybe other times there's ways to sort of shorten that or give a summary or some brief points. I do think, and what Barbara said, I think it's everyone's responsibility to meet the resolutions. The expectation is as you walk into the meeting, you should have read it. It shouldn't be where people are reading things for the first time. I think sometimes when people say, could you put that on the screen, and as if they're going to read it for the first time, I'm always like, well, why do you really, I could see if we're editing it live, or, maybe if it's, I don't know, maybe if it's controversial, but, for the most part, I know that the majority of the people that I know do a lot of work beforehand and read it. And I think that will help us have a much more efficient meeting as well. And I know that I've worked with Max pretty heavily, and I come down on them pretty hard at trying to get it out like on a Friday or a Saturday. Early in my tenure, we were getting this out a lot later, and I wasn't happy with that, but I think we're trying to get it out early. So I think these are all good conversations for us to have, and we can figure out how to do so. I think maybe the bylaws, this is great timing for you, Susan, to sort of bring some of this forward. But at the same time, there's other best practices. I do think we'll be moving at least the full board to live, and I think that will change a lot of this. So if we continue on in the terms of, I know hybrid, but I'm just talking about, we have another Zoom full board, then perhaps I'll meet with the office and we can kind of come up with some ideas as we move into it. Doug, do you have a last thought on this that you wanted to do?
I just wanted to say that I certainly understand the efficiency, and we're just, the other part of this, of course, is that being that we're on Zoom, those resolutions should be on our website. So it's also for the public to know what we're voting on. So if we're good, it goes back into when these agenda items and resolutions get posted. So, just make sure that members of the public can read it. If they are on the website and there's a resolution that we're not going to read out loud, we can always remind people, if they wish to see what we're voting on, they may go to our website as long as it's there. That's all I wanted to say.
I mean, in a quick summary, what I've tried to put in place informally or formally, if anybody hasn't read, is that I got a 4 or 5 minute summary of what it is. That's a summary piece of it. And I think that's enough for the public. My feeling is then you go around to every different member to share. Some people ask questions, but some of those are rhetorical questions, just so you know, not every question. And I don't think that, it's not a Q&A session. I think it's more of a session where people can ask some questions. My feeling is whoever presented, if they wrote them down, would then have a session at the end to say, here are the questions and let me kind of answer them all at once. I think that's an efficient manner. If it's a quick yes, no, it's fine. But I think what we want to try and do is not get into, just a back and forth Q&A session. That's kind of what I've been shooting for. But again, I think this could be moot as we move forward. And in person, it's a little bit easier to have them, and they seem a little more naturally efficient. But I appreciate the dialogue. In terms of in person, I was going to call on our in-person task force. I don't think I see Elizabeth. If anybody thinks I'm wrong, because I only think I have one screen up. So again, okay. So that's both housing and in-person task force are not present. Let me just take some notes. Well, speaking of task force, why don't I have Polly or Will, whoever's here, for the public task force.
Okay, hello everyone, good evening. I'm happy to report at our April 27th meeting, we will have PSA 6 to present information on 2 new programs and initiatives coming down from Mayor Adams that is being introduced to reduce gang activity. If you don't know what PSA 6 stands for, it stands for Police Service Area 6. It's part of the Housing Bureau. It covers all the housing complexes here on the Upper West Side, so geographically. So we will have Detective Collado, who has also spoken before our board in the past, and he's going to present information to us about this new program. There are actually two of them. One is called Pop-Up Cop, and another one's a advisory council. And so these are two initiatives that came from Mayor Adams that's coming down the pipe. And so he's going to give us some details. And he also is very excited about what we're doing on the Public Safety Task Force. And he has offered to support us in anything that we need to help us figure out how to, again, improve the quality of life for everyone. So that's what's on our agenda for April 27th. I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.
And I would just add, the last meeting, we had more of a presentation about the Hochul's sort of 10-point plan in terms of public safety. And we had a representative, and I would also say that Polly and I attended sort of a private, not private, it's wrong way to say it. They did something where they invited the chairs and the heads of the public safety. I know the budget got done today, so I really didn't get a chance if any of that's moved or how that went forward. But I would say that, again, that from a work perspective, I thought it was very interesting. We went through those 10-point plans, and someone from the governor's office was at it. So I thought it was a very good meeting. So.
Right, and to add to that also, you know, we did give her some comments, advice, and suggestions. Hopefully she'll get back to us to see, because she said she would bring that to the attention of the governor's office. So hopefully, you know, when she speaks to us again, she will have some good news for us, you know, especially in regard to funding, because she did say that in particular for our area, since we have people who are mentally challenged, that, you know, certain points were kind of set up to address our issues. So I thought that was interesting at the end of her dialogue when I asked that question about funding, how soon would that funding, you know, be given to our area? And she said she didn't know, and that's okay, because I guess if the budget's just been approved, we'll find out. But I'm glad that she did mention our area, and that, you know, we could look forward to getting some support from their office. In addition to that, because not only the mentally challenged, but also the gang activity, you know, the shoplifting going on, that's why I'm very excited that PSA 6 introduced this program. That's what was part of our discussion. And I thought that was great that the mayor is figuring out alternative ways to address the problems that we have right now. So hopefully it'll be a success. They are going to call on a lot of leaders in the community to participate in the program, for what I understand. But, you know, I want to wait until he basically outlines specifically the details, because it's still a work in progress as far as the framework. But the pop-up cop sounds very interesting, and the advisory council that they're putting together, that'll be separate from the community councils, not in a, you know, that's in addition to. So, you know, again, they were very excited that we as a board are starting this public safety task force, and they're willing to partner with us. So.
Thank you, Polly.
Mm-hmm.
Shelley, you want to do HHS?
Okay, so the theme for April 26th meeting will be a forum on food insecurity and access. And we're very fortunate, was able to contact the Tisch Center for Food Policy and Nutrition. And we will have Dr. Pam Koch, who's the faculty director, Dr. Sarah Aboila, who's the executive director, and Andrew Barrett, who's the food ed hub director. Okay, and I think it's going to be very exciting, because I've heard each one of them speak, and what they have to offer is very valuable and informative. In addition, thanks to Kay Carpin, we made a contact with Chef Greg Silverman, and he got back to me. He's Chief Executive Officer from Westside Campaign Against Hunger, and he's excited about participating, and will have sent them questions already to focus their presentation. In addition, we'll have representative from Hunter College, New York City Food Policy Center, and Goddard Riverside. With each group of presenters, I've arranged for a pre-meeting to kind of direct what they'll be doing, and so we're not having repetition, and so each is covering a certain aspect or aspects. So it looks like it'll be turning into a nice program, and Kay will be there also when he can get on. So, and again, thank you.
Well, if Kay's going to be there, I'm going to be there. So, I know it's going to be packed. Okay, we've got two more. I'm gonna save the biggest for last, which will be preservations, because I know there's a lot of emails. So let's do the senior task force first.
Steve, can I do a quick thing on housing? So Larry Wood from Goddard Riverside, who was the head of their housing program for many years, is now head of advocacy, is going to be speaking at the housing committee meeting next Monday. And Tuesday, Gail Brewer and Linda Rosenthal are doing a forum on warehouse departments. I've sent around a link to the housing committee, but if anyone's interested, I can send the link to them. The senior task force will be meeting next Thursday. We have nothing new to report since our last meeting. One of the top topics that we'll be taking up, which is when you're at a light and there's a button that you can press that tells you when it's safe to cross. And this is very useful for people who have serious vision impairment. And it turns out it's also used by little kids who don't quite understand when the light changes. But anyway, what we're going to ask is everybody on the senior task force to look at areas where they want the lights, where they want these signals. And DOT had told transportation, I don't think Howard's here anymore, that if transportation asks for specific streets, they will try and provide them. There is funding. It's just going to take a long time for the funding. So that is one of the topics we will be discussing next Thursday.
I don't really understand what those buttons do. I thought they were all just there for show.
No. You press the button and it clicks, and then it tells you stop. And then when the light turns, it tells you it's safe to go.
Audibly?
Yeah. It's for the blind or for people with vision impairment. Next time you're there, try it.
I'll try it.
It's a very exciting program. What they're doing right now is when it's a new light, when they're replacing a light, they automatically put it in. But where it doesn't exist, so example, if Whitfish wanted one near their new building, they could request that they be there. It's a very exciting program. But anyway, that's one of the topics we will be discussing.
Thank you, and thank you for the housing update as well. Well, now the main event, because I've seen a lot of emails for the preservation committee. So, and I see some preservation people. So we'll let you guys get to it. But there is a very important topic, and I know there's been a lot of conversation. So I'll let you guys handle it, and there may be some questions about it as well.
Michelle, you want to speak to our regular meeting, and then I can address what we're hoping to do for the cold meeting, or?
Yes.
Okay.
We were asked to hear the application to rescind the landmark status of West Park Presbyterian Church at 86 in Amsterdam that Richard spoke about very briefly. But we decided we cannot hear that application this coming Thursday at our regular meeting because we have 3 applications the day before and part of the day of, and important holidays for just about 2/3 of the city. So we are going to hear 3 other applications. Those applicants already have dates at Landmarks Preservation, and they need our resolution to be heard at Landmarks. So West Park Presbyterian Church will be heard, and now you, Kay.
Ah, my cue. All right, we're hoping, and in the process of setting up a separate meeting just to deal with that topic, because it's a big topic. It's one that there'll be, already is, and there will continue to be a lot of public interest and people weighing in about. So Michelle's already introduced that. We're hoping to schedule that, assuming that folks are in agreement, for May 5th is one of the few open dates on our community board calendar for May. That's a Thursday evening, the first Thursday.
And that'll be the
May.
first meeting of May. We'll have 2 meetings in May.
Yes, we'll do. Yes, exactly. What fun. Yeah. So lots more to be said about that. It's a hardship. It's they're bringing a hardship proceeding before the Landmarks Preservation Commission. That's a provision of the landmarks law that's rarely used, but it is part of the landmarks law. When the owner of a building is unable to make the necessary repairs to keep it up, or in the case of a for-profit organization, make some sort of a reasonable return on the investment. Like I say, it's been rarely used, I think 19 times since the 65 landmark law went into effect. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes not, but it's an important topic. That's an important building in our community. So we will, I encourage everybody to come on May 5th and weigh in on that.
If I could add, Kay, this church is not in a landmark district. It is an individually landmarked building.
Correct.
That might change things, but for our purposes, it helps us focus.
Yeah, it was specifically carved out of the landmark district, but then added later as an individual landmark.
So can I just ask a couple questions? So this is going to be the May 5th. Is that the May preservation meeting, or is that a different meeting?
That's like an extra fun meeting.
Just for that issue.
So when is the May preservation meeting, out of curiosity?
It'll be the usual second Thursday, which is, I believe, the 13th. No, the 12th of May.
Okay.
Because we'll have another batch of resolutions then, and to tag this on.
I understand. The reason I bring it up is that technically, I don't know how many people know, we're supposed to have a public hearing once a month. It's been something that's been batted around, and Mark and I are very familiar with from a report that came out. But my suggestion is this is a big enough topic where we may want to make it a public hearing, which only doesn't really change anything other than I think adds a different type of cachet. I just want to put my 2 cents in that I do think this is a very important topic. This is a very important building. I think people are very passionate about it. So, we should, it seems like the dialogue today was very serious. So I'm only applauding that. And everything that we need to do to make that a good hearing and the right people there, I think is super important, because it's the type of thing that I think is big for the community. And perhaps you guys can coordinate. There's a little, I don't know what the nuance is, Max, if you remember, what's the difference between a public hearing and, it's a preservation committee, that's a public hearing, so it doesn't change anything. But we actually, and just reminding myself that we should have, Max, we have to kind of talk about this, that technically, according to the city charter, we're supposed to have a public hearing once a month anyway. So maybe this can start something around there. But I'm sure there'll be lots of other dialogues. I saw a lot of passion in the emails. I guess that's good, because things of this matter, are people passionate, and I think that's what the Upper West Side is all about. I think we've got some great preservationists on our board. Let's just make sure we do it correctly, which I think we're going to do, and let's make sure we do notice. And Max, let's make sure we do everything that's right to make sure we get the community out, who I think will have an opinion on this.
Yeah, we thank everybody and look forward to your input, your professional input on this matter.
Great. So there's a couple hands up, and I'll start with my friend Jay.
Unmute, Jay.
Just quickly, I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but certainly if we do this as a public hearing, I just want to suggest that we make sure we put the full application on the website, and also I would suggest we post the relevant sections of the landmark law that define, what's necessary in a hardship application, so that everybody in advance knows what the ramifications are, what the results can be, et cetera, et cetera. And apropos of the first discussion tonight, if we post as much information as possible, it will save us enough time to get into the meat of the discussion.
Thank you, sir. And anything you want to share, I think the links and all that stuff we can do, but we'll make sure that we do it correctly. And I just want to make sure everyone understands, like, what I've learned is having a public hearing really isn't much different than anything we do in our regular meetings, other than you have to call it a public hearing. So, and technically we have to have, we're supposed to have a public hearing once a month. Otherwise we are in violation of something. So, it's not going to change anything that we have to say.
I know.
Ethel, I could see that you are upset at my comment of the public hearing. So let's have you speak, and you can ask if you like.
I am not upset at all. I think sometimes, though, actually feeling the obligation to do something without understanding the purpose of it may not make the exercise particularly comprehensible and clear. But I just want to, it's unusual, I know, but I want to echo what Jay has said, and particularly two big things. I'd like to know, to the extent we can, the calendar and the process and the timing of the Landmarks Preservation Commission hearings on this, and what the process is, because it may be somewhat different when there's a question of a demolition. And so secondly, for the same reason, we should determine legally, but also determine what materials should be available and published early enough so that the public and the board members can see it. This is unusual. It's not, it's happened before, but it really is unusual, and we've got responsibilities, and we all want to know what the purpose is, what the difficulties are, what the process is, what the values are, and what the decision-making process is. So I'm asking for that to the extent that we can do it.
Thank you, and all very good points. And my suggestion is that we can, during preservations this month, after the 3 applications, you can spend 10 minutes to just coordinate what you're going to do for that, or how you want to do something. There is a new and old business in every section. I don't think Michelle wants to do that, but I'm going to put it out that there is a sense of, we just want to make sure that it's prepared correctly.
I'll keep my options open. I shouldn't have shaken. I know what the applications are for Thursday, and I know a lot of people have important things to do Thursday and Friday.
Well, again, it's your meeting, you allow it, but I think we just want to make sure that we're prepared, and if there's a moment to get organized, perhaps there is.
Of course.
Let's
It is a religious holiday, and it's on the eve of another.
Yeah.
So
Right,
well
exactly.
may want to keep it short.
Again, I will defer to the two of you. Mark?
Okay.
There it is. Thank you. I think your idea of calling this a public hearing is a good one. I'm pretty sure that other than ULURP hearings, there is no enhanced quorum requirement. So a meeting can be a public hearing without any, as long as we call it that. By the way, without belaboring this meeting, I think we hold a public hearing every month by having that public safety session. So,
exactly,
and I've argued that with some vehemence to folks who are now mad at me. I know they've joined a big crowd. Thank you very much. With respect to Jay's good point about publishing information in advance, and Ethel's point about that, I would just lob in one more thought, that this board has already spoken on the designation of this building as a landmark. It was designated in 2010, and I am certain that we voted rather robustly to support it. So I'm always one not to retrace steps. And so I think that among the many, many things that we should put on our website, we should have that handy as well. Final point, I would anticipate, just as when this building was designated by the Landmarks Preservation Commission in 2010, it was then called up by the city council for a hearing and a vote. I would wager, a good beer that that's going to happen again. So just looking down the road, we may not be done when we have the public hearing and vote at LPC. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. And Max, my thinking is that we could publish an area on the website. We could talk about it, but to Mark's point, if there's a resolution, or if anybody else has ideas, please give it to Max. We'll certainly coordinate with the chairs to make sure that it's done, but certainly having a section on the website that can give information, I think would be a good thing.
And Paige has furnished the designation report from back then, so I think that would be another important thing to
You think the information well before it would be wonderful. Michelle, your hand's up. Were you just telling me that it was a busy night Thursday, or you got something else?
Yeah, I just want to say that we've already been in contact with Jesse to look through all the CB7 files, to your comment, Mark, to pull up anything to do with this location. And so Max, I guess, I know this should all go on the website. As far as what Ethel said, LPC is not going to hear the demolition. LPC is going to hear the application to rescind the landmark status. And then whatever the church decides to do, we kind of know ahead of the game that it will be, they want to demolish it and somebody else is going to build a building. But Landmarks is not going to hear anything. I don't believe Landmarks going to hear Landmarks Preservation Committee is going to hear an application for demolition just to rescind the landmark status. It's a small
Thank you.
point. Yeah.
No, it isn't small. You're accurate. Go ahead.
And as far as looking at this hardship status, Jay, I haven't done all the research yet, but in part it's statutory and in part it's case law. So this is really refined, complicated stuff. We're up to handling this. We can do it.
Yeah,
Very, very interesting.
I can't give you an opinion, Michelle, because you can't afford my hourly rate. I'm gonna.
Okay, touche. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate once again everybody's input on this and looking forward to a robust discussion.
Well, thank you. And again, this is what steering is for. So I do think we put a little attention to a very important matter. I think we all have it very organized, and we're going to make sure that the community, that we handle this correctly. And I think we've got good co-chairs, but I think we also got a very talented and diverse preservation committee. So I'm very confident that we'll have a positive outcome. So that is all of our committees. I'm going to just open up I have no new or old business. If there's anybody who wants to bring up new or old business, this would be the time. And then we'll close the meeting. So Doug, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted a couple of quick updates. I suppose people are reading some of the blogs that there was an arrest in one of the juveniles that was accused of a hate crime on 85th and West End Avenue. I'm happy to see that person, even though very young, is going to hopefully learn a lot from this. Let's just say that. The other thing is, perhaps you read that there were five fires in a row between the hours of 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. yesterday. And one of those fires was set, these were apparently deliberately set, and one of them was the dining shed at Barney Greengrass. There apparently a lot of investigations. Police are asking for, I guess for tips. I have a feeling that this person or people are going to be apprehended because it appears that they're related and there must be a lot of cameras. So I actually spoke with Mr. Greengrass today, who I consider to be a legacy business owner in our neighborhood. It's over 100 years he's been there, which coincidentally is right next to the church that we were talking about. And he seemed to be doing okay. He was very reassured that we had that the police had a very robust response. So he was very reassured, very happy about that. And the only other thing I want to say, which is more, is a little personal, but it's also a very Upper West Side thing, perhaps you read in the paper, that a very prominent Upper West Sider, and he was bi-coastal on Paul Herman, who was an actor, but also a business owner on the Upper West Side, passed away. He was a friend of mine. This morning was his funeral. He used to own a restaurant called Columbus with many other partners. And he also was originally involved with Cafe Central, which had a couple of different iterations on the Upper West Side. He was an unbelievable, his IMDb, all the movies and television shows that he were in was just unbelievable. And the funeral was at Riverside. I was there to express respects for my friend. And boy, was it a who's who. I'm going to drop some names. This morning, Robert De Niro eulogized him, and Mike Tyson eulogized him, and Chaz Palminteri, and Tony Danza, and my guys, Christopher Walken, and I can go on and on. Sean Penn was there, and Mark Wahlberg, but lots of stories. And he was a real Upper West Side guy. And I think it's an era, it's kind of an end of an era. And he really was kind of a regular, I want to say piece of furniture, but he was always out on Columbus Avenue talking. And there was a lot of a real Upper West Side thing. So he's going to be very missed. I'm sure if you Google him, if you don't know him, Paul Herman, may he rest in peace. And I just wanted to mention that. And he was also a rocket scientist, a real one. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Well, I find it ironic. I think you were telling me stories about that a few Sundays ago. So I find that ironic. And in terms of the fires, perhaps one thing to say is perhaps you can follow up with Polly. I don't know if there's multiple sessions available, but maybe there's an opportunity to have a session at the public safety around fires and maybe get a spokesperson. There are multiple spokespeople that we can reach out to, but if it's just something in general and what's going on, or if you have a topic, I think discussing the fire at the public safety is something that we've needed to do for a while, and maybe the two of you can coordinate and come up with something like that on that. Okay, Richard, I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, I just to follow up on the length of meeting issue, I don't think the rules have to be spelled out in the bylaws. I think a more appropriate way to go about it is for you, Steve, to promulgate a set of rules. For example, limiting the initial speech of someone, and then if the person needs to speak a second time, limiting it further, let's say to 30 seconds or 45 seconds. For non-controversial issues, it may make sense for you to ask for anyone who's opposed to the issue to speak first. And if nobody speaks, that will probably encourage other people not to speak in favor. And there are a number of other things I'm happy to discuss with you. There are a lot of things that you can do as chair to cut down on the length of our discussions.
Okay, well, thank you, Richard. And if we end up having a Zoom next time, what I'll do is I'll plan on putting together maybe some of these best practices and announce them before the resolutions, before our business time, if there's other people want to share thoughts as well. Again, I kind of have an informal process that I try to adhere to. Maybe I don't always articulate it well. Again, I think the idea is that, there's you give the first person, it really should be the chair, but if the chair wants to designate it to someone, I'm not necessarily against that, but just do a brief summary of what it is. It should be maybe 5 minutes max. Some could be 3 or 4 minutes. I know that there are, sometimes we read them into record, that we could talk more about that. My preference is a 5-minute summary. Then we would kind of go around to everyone and then have a final kind of summary. And if somebody asks 3 questions, instead of answering them as they go, because it has a tendency to break off into sometimes Q&As, to have somebody summarize and said, these questions are answered, I'm going to answer them, and then we vote. But if there's other things that you have ideas, Richard, I'd love to catch up with you.
Yeah, I think sometimes the best thing is peer pressure.
Well, then I could use help. So
if you express in what you say, if you express the fact that you have heard from several board members objecting to the length of some people's comments and to the relevance, and you ask people to think twice before they speak at great length.
Well, I will be empowered from this. I tried to address it from time to time, but I think sometimes I look like the big bad bear. But
not at all.
Empowered, and I did get a lot of positive feedback. I will tell you, community members did as well. So I'm glad that we had this discussion. Again, if we're in person, it may be a little bit different, but if we do, then we'll address it. So
I also want to talk to you at further length about the public safety portion of the.
Sure.
I have some ideas about it.
Okay, we can catch up. So speaking of,
Move to adjourn.
sure, Roberta, did you want to say something?
Can we move? Are you accepting a motion to adjourn?
I am going to say, and with the subject of short meetings, let's adjourn the meeting. So I more than accept it. I welcome it. So
Second.
thank you, everybody. Have a
Thanks,
great month,
everybody.
and we'll speak as the month